Keep your Cinderella stories at home. The NFL has no time for them. Good morning. Happy Monday. Welcome back to the show. Welcome into the show. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. Lucas is back there making it happen. Good morning, bud.
Good morning. It's not March yet.
Yeah, Cinderella time is just a few months away, to his point. But the lovable, perpetual losers, Detroit Lions, had to take a more painful L than usual yesterday. And Baltimore with, I would argue, one of the worst games from a legitimate Super Bowl contender that I have ever seen in my lifetime, top to bottom. We have not checked. Well, that's not true. I have checked on Bert. He was at the AFC Championship game yesterday. He is unwell. He described himself as a shell of a human being. I would do the thing that we sometimes do to bother our friends and guests and regular contributors to this show. I would not ask Lucas to call him on the guest line. I would just hold my phone up and call Bert myself. But I fear his lack of awareness around the FCC regulations. Don't trust him.
We should protect him by not doing that. But I think you're the first to make contact with him.
Really?
Out of our whole crew, yes. I heard Ramon, Kayla, and Will talking about it this morning. I think they took the approach of let him come to us when he's ready.
I texted him at 8:05 a.m., "Are you well?" He responded, "I'm a hull." An Hull, a hull. Now, how would you take that? A hull. Because I didn't know how to respond initially. Like, I didn't know if he misspelled something. Everybody has the ability to edit your text now, so, he just left it there. Hull, as in a ship's hull.
I suppose he's empty? Is that what he's trying to tell you, that he's just empty inside?
I responded, "I'm not sure what that means. Are you at work?" He said, "No, I went to the game, LOL. I'm flying back today. A hull is the outer part of a pea or a bean. I am a shell of a man."
Ah, yes. So empty inside.
It was a roundabout way to get there, but yeah. So Bert's unwell because his football team's choked. And the Lions, there's a multitude of reasons why the Detroit Lions are not playing in the Super Bowl today or in a couple of weeks when the Super Bowl's actually played in Las Vegas. Why the Niners are advancing, and why they will play Kansas City and all these different things beyond just Dan Campbell's decision-making, all right? But in ways that I really did not expect, it gave us a compelling weekend of football. Let's start there. What were you rooting for going into championship weekend? Were you rooting for Lamar to end our long-suffering national nightmare of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce coverage? Were you rooting for Detroit to realize, things that they have not realized as a franchise? Basically, this is the best Detroit Lions team of my lifetime, God knows. For those of you watching football for longer than the last 30 years between Lucas and I, 28 for Lucas, 30 for me, you understand that it's probably the best Detroit Lions team of your lifetimes. What were you rooting for going into conference championship weekend? Because as a show, I just want what's best, what's most interesting, what's compelling, maybe a little drama, maybe some bad officiating, just something that's going to get you guys interested when the team that's out of market or the teams that are out of market are playing to talk about.
I wanted fresh blood. Not because of I don't give a damn about the Taylor Swift stuff. Like I
really don't either.
People are really getting hung up on that, and I get they show her a lot, and it's a big part of it, and maybe you have fatigue, but I'm not going to put energy into being upset about it. And I wanted the Lions to win for obvious reasons. I would have loved a Ravens-Lions Super Bowl matchup. That may be blasphemous for a lot of Titans fans to say rooting for the Ravens in the AFC title game. But I don't know. Everybody's going to watch, obviously, but does Chiefs-Niners, is everyone juiced about that?
Yeah.
Everyone juiced about that matchup?
Well, probably not in the immediate, again, but no, it's still Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. I still want to see Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. I want to see Deebo Samuel and George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk, and even Brock Purdy, who led a miraculous comeback yesterday. And I know Lamar helped him, and the Baltimore Ravens did not play their best game. In fact, they played their worst game of the season at their worst possible point.
So this is the matchup you wanted.
I wanted to see Lamar
in the Super Bowl.
I'm not salty at all that the Chiefs are doing it, and that the Chiefs are doing it with a great defense, a defense that's legitimately fun to watch. It was fun to watch them shut down the Baltimore Ravens. The Chiefs' defense makes defense fun in ways that I think everybody can kind of rally behind. Maybe not rally behind because, yeah, there's fatigue. It's Alabama. It's 4 Super Bowls in 6 seasons. It's Brady stuff. They're doing the Patriots thing, except he's better. He's better. Or he's not the greatest winner in the history of the sport. That's not what I'm saying. But as a quarterback, he's better. So this kind of dynastic potential, or he's already got 2, and he's going to play in 4. Sure, people are sick of that kind of stuff. Dynasties in sports are fun after the fact, but in real time, bleep them. Come on. We had a call, what was that, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, coming in talking about after they fired Vrabel, all the different things that the Titans need to do to get back to competitiveness in the AFC, and then he just kind of ended the call being like, but yeah, you know, what's the point?
What's the point?
Mahomes. You see what Mahomes just did against Allen? Come on. That's kind of what it feels like.
It wasn't even necessarily about Mahomes.
No.
Yesterday's the thing, yet it's still about Mahomes.
Oh, well, because it's Travis Kelce passing Jerry Rice for the most postseason receptions of all time. Insanity. It's the fact that they continue to get back to this game when, I mean, I don't know that we as a collective football society kind of left the Chiefs for dead. I don't know that it was ever that drastic. Like, oh, this team's going nowhere, right? I don't think anybody was really pounding the table saying the Chiefs are done. You know, Patrick Mahomes isn't getting back there. They can't afford to let Tyreek Hill walk as they beat Tyreek Hill's team to advance to the divisional round.
I think some were.
Okay.
With just how desperate the situation got at the wide receiver position, especially. It wasn't good last year. It's been worse this year.
Yeah, but now look.
Until the postseason.
All MVS is doing is catching these passes.
Mm-hmm. Travis Kelce catching all 11 targets is back to being unstoppable, where there was kind of a lull at some point in the regular season.
But yeah, he's old. He's tired. He don't want to do this stuff through October, November, December, and January. It's not just that they keep getting back to these games. It's that they continue to do it when playing that much football year in and year out. It's what makes LeBron ridiculous over the court. No matter what you think of him, the person, his positions on things, I don't care about that. The fact that he's 40 years old and still going toe-to-toe. Steph Curry and LeBron James the other night. I know our audience isn't super NBA heavy, but I'm sure some of you saw the highlights. It was insane what those two are doing. Like legitimate greats, right? And that they've done it after playing so much more basketball than everybody else because they're in the postseason constantly. They're in the finals constantly. The Warriors are coming off that kind of a run, right? It wears on you, not just physically, mentally, emotionally, all of it. And that the Chiefs continue to do this and can turn it on at the right time, and they're healthy enough. They can run the football. Ravens defense did a pretty good job on them in the second half, though.
Did a very good job.
Right?
A very good job.
Terrell Suggs came out, got the crowd hype. Ravens defense was feeding off of it. Kyle Hamilton might be my favorite defensive player in football right now, just because they use him in so many different ways. We'll see what happens when Mike McDonald leaves, potentially for the Seattle job, because now they can actually interview him. All that to say, Chiefs-Niners again.
What do you think the line is?
Chiefs minus 2.5.
Minus 1.5.
Ooh.
Niners.
Oh, really?
Niners favored right out the gate.
Is that just geographically? Does that have anything to do with it? I mean, they're closer to the West Coast than Vegas. I don't know. I don't. Odds for Super Bowls are weird. So we'll see how much that line moves, if at all, throughout the course of the coming weeks. Obviously, they'll have some time off to get healthy. Senior Bowl stuff will start for teams in the meantime. Titans made a bunch of decisions this weekend to start to fire Mike Vrabel's coaching staff. We'll talk about that later on as well. 615-737-1045 is the number. We've got your phone calls coming up next. All right, the rest of the world is talking about Dan Campbell's fourth quarter decision-making. We're going to get into that here in just a second. Given that a quote-unquote analytical approach is something that is going to be debated here, one would imagine, for months, years. We'll see if it's successful or not. But given that there is higher-minded thinking, allegedly, within the Titans building and how they're constructing this thing moving forward, I think the Dan Campbell discussion is one that is particularly relevant to Titans fans. And we'll talk about it within the context of what you want out of your new coaching staff. Phone calls are welcome. 615-737-1045 is the number. Jason in Murfreesboro is next. Hey, Jason. Okay, good talk. What happened? Strong start to the week.
Jason typically is all reliable on the phone line.
Okay. Well, I don't know how we feel about second chances today. I feel like if you try it on a Monday, you swing and you miss. I feel like I don't want to give you a second chance.
Maybe it's a slippery slope, too.
That's, well, for your slippery slope just depends on how many nice things they say about you before you put them on hold.
It's true.
Typically how this works. Anyway, Dan Campbell. Is there a more universally popular figure in the NFL this season than Dan Campbell? Is there a coach, a player, an executive, anybody associated with a team who is more universally well-liked? Doesn't mean that, like, everybody under the sun, somebody's probably screaming at their car, I hate Dan Campbell. He sucked as a tight end. Okay, whatever. But, like, as a football society, he seems pretty well received by all the major components, right? From the football guys, hand in the dirt, blood, sweat, grit. From the numbers people who like aggression, not necessarily saying that Dan Campbell's fourth down decision-making yesterday and fourth quarter decision-making yesterday were driven by the kind of information that is supposed to inform better decision-making. Do you think that it's a losing battle just calling it analytics genuinely or generally without kind of boiling it down to, no, this is a part of strategy. This stuff inform, like, if I call it strategy instead of analytics, do people have a less harsh reaction to it? Because I think it's just bad branding.
Yeah, or mentality or identity. Because Campbell seems to do it as much as a message to his team or a message about his team and his confidence in them as he does anything numbers driven. When you hear him talk about it, that's the vein that he talks about it in, not with numbers.
Stephen Wood Jr. on Twitter, where you can live stream the show and you can interact in the chat, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Campbell is the 2019-2020 Mike Vrabel. Now, the 2019-2020 Mike Vrabel, one would agree, or most would agree, is the best version of Mike Vrabel, right? So is that a compliment?
Well, the rest of Steve's comment, Vrabel did the same thing. His decision-making cost us the trip to the Super Bowl.
I don't remember it that way. I remember Rashaan Evans tackling costing you a trip to the Super Bowl.
I remember Patrick Mahomes costing you a trip to the Super Bowl.
And now, if you want to play devil's advocate, one would bring up the Woodyard perspective on that, saying that Mike Vrabel taking the defensive play calling from Dean Pease because he didn't like the game plan against the Ravens, is something that cost them, like, that decision-making can be directly attributed. Again, when you look at the total yardage, not saying that it was a good decision by Vrabel. We don't know how it would have played out. It played out the way that it played out. But I don't think their game plan for Kansas City, that game was pretty good. They had a 10-point lead, and then they blew it.
Yeah, the revisionist history on the Vrabel era has been interesting to watch from Titans fans over the last few years, right?
It's kind of like, you know how we've been in a spot the last couple of years, and you've been a louder advocate for this than I feel like a lot of people. Like Mike Mularkey just gets done dirty, right? Just in history, Mike Mularkey gets kind of left behind, or at least in recency. John Robinson got some of this too, where you achieved new heights with John, and then the bottom fell out with John, and you try to separate those two things. I'm not saying that the way that Vrabel went about it, like maybe his demeanor, all the different things that led up to him taking that role or responsibility from Dean Pease, again, they lost the game, but I was at that game. I covered that game. I don't remember their defense being an outright problem. I remember Patrick Mahomes going God tier and skirting by on the sideline Rashaan Evans, who was outstretched and barely missed him. Like, Rashaan was right there. He missed the tackle. People are going to forever remember him for the missed tackle. But he was right there. And, of course, Mahomes takes the lead into halftime, and they roll you slower than they did the Texans the week before, where the Chiefs ran out of fireworks. They scored so many touchdowns in the second half. There is revisionist history there. So Dan Campbell, as the example there, he stood by it in his post-game media availability last night. He's walking out of the tunnel. Did you see the videos of him with his arm around Teddy Bridgewater? Because Bridgewater's retiring at the end of the year. And Dan, just, being that kind of super likable guy. But he knows that he's going to get scrutinized for this. Quote, "It's easy hindsight. I get it. I get that. But I don't regret those decisions. And it's hard," Campbell said. "It's hard because we didn't come through and it wasn't able to work out. But I don't. And I understand the scrutiny I'll get. That's part of the gig. It just didn't work out." So they're dominant. Like, they're smacking the Niners around a little bit. They have a 17-point lead.
They're clobbering them in the run game in the first half.
In the first half of this game, you look around and say, I'm just hoping for a competitive football game. And then the Niners rattle off 27 unanswered, and it turns into a disaster for Detroit because of some of the decision-making. Some things due to drops. Some things due to Titans legends, Josh Reynolds and Kendall Vildor, making plays or not making plays in big spots in a couple of different examples.
Yeah, what had more to do with blowing that lead? Jahmyr Gibbs fumbling on the first play of a drive, Josh Reynolds dropping two critical would-be first downs. What you said, the freak play with Vildor, did that contribute more, or did the decision-making that has been so consistent with Dan Campbell all season, or is that what took them down? Because I think it's the former.
The answer is all of it, but Lucas, I'm more inclined to agree with you. Dan Campbell is getting dragged today. And I'm looking around and saying there's a lack of execution here.
Depends who you're listening to, though. Like, where are you seeing Dan Campbell get dragged?
With the vast majority of the post-game reaction. To be honest, I haven't turned on television this morning. Last night, when I last checked social media, and I understand, Twitter is not a nice place. That's where the most possible knee-jerk reactions reside. So I haven't seen the discussions being had on Sports Talk Television. I was getting ready for the show this morning, so I haven't seen or heard anybody else today. But I understand why there would be a lot of noise around Dan Campbell's decision-making. My gambling group text last night was losing their damn minds. Now, I don't know how much money people had on the Lions and things like that were making those kind of comments. Those comments weren't disclosed as a part of the criticism of Dan Campbell's decision-making. But what stands out to me more than anything is a lack of execution in a couple of different moments, kind of like Baltimore. Baltimore played a dumb football game. It's dumb. The amount of penalties that they're making. Jadeveon Clowney leading with his head when he knows Patrick Mahomes is going to get that call. Just kind of these things that accumulate throughout the course of the game. And what's the most polarizing discussion that you can have? Are you going to go nationally and talk about Kendall Vildor, who you don't know, who we know because he's a part of a larger comedic bit around here, rightly or wrongly? Or are you going to drag Dan Campbell because he's the face of the Lions? You know he's aggressive. Those kind of things are easy lightning rods. The fourth down decision-making. Are you using the numbers? Are you not using the numbers? Are you a meathead? Are you a smart guy? Are you somewhere in between? What happened here, Dan? It's an easier discussion to kind of hone in on, I think, collectively, for the most possible people. Because you're right. I'm with you. At least based on what you're saying there, I think it's an execution thing.
Yeah.
And that Dan Campbell's just the easier discussion to have.
Now, to play some devil's advocate to that, let's go back to the final sequence of the first half. Lions up 14 inside the San Francisco 5. 4th and goal on the 3. What do? In any other instance, when you think 4th and goal, NFC Championship, inside the 5-yard line, Dan Campbell, how many people are going to look at that and say, oh, he's going for it? Of course he's going for it. No, he kicked it. He kicked it because he understood the importance of going up 3 scores going into halftime. as opposed to the risk of not scoring there and going into the half up only 2 possessions on the road. So that is the one thing that is like the little voice in my head saying, well, you kicked it at the end of the first half to go up 17.
Yeah.
So why not kick it to tie the football game?
Oh, no, he's to blame here. He is not faultless. We're not doing this or that. Like, it's all of it. They lost the game because all of these things happened. They lost the game because they had 3 drop passes in the second half. They lost the game because Dan Campbell got to Dan Campbell. Like, there's all of these things are what led to the final result. My point is that it's not just the one thing. It's not just the one thing. You can't narrow it down. And ESPN, whatever this means, the analytics at ESPN slightly favor Dan Campbell's decision to go for it on 2 fourth downs in the second half, giving the Lions a small bump in their odds of winning the game. To go for it on 4th and 2 from the 49ers 28, instead of kicking the field goal, gave them a 90.5% chance of success. To kick a field goal was 90.3. So it's a coin flip there, right? Basically, slightly. 0.2% is what ESPN is saying the 4th and 2 on the 28 gave them a chance to succeed. 4th and 3 from the Niners 30, 39.1% chance to win if you go for it, 38.8% chance if you kick the field goal. So again, coin flip.
Yeah, when the margins are that thin, he's going.
He picked the wrong side. The gut feeling guy he got blowed up in a big spot. Now, it's not Brandon Staley levels of egregious. They lose no matter what, so maybe you don't care if the final result is the loss. Maybe you don't care how you got there. I think you should. Because aren't we going to have a ton of discussions about this, theoretically, locally, moving forward? Isn't that the whole point? How much of the numbers are going to be married into the strategy? I'm not going to call it analytics anymore. I'm going to call it strategy because it seems like people just immediately check out as soon as I say analytics. But how the numbers inform the strategy is what we're looking at around here and saying that's the direction that this franchise is trying to head. Is it just going to lead to more controversial decisions, or is the more controversial thing in football now to trust your gut? Instead of just holding up a percentage and being like, look at the number. The number said go. The little graphic in the bottom of Joe Buck's face, the ESPN analytics department. It never says don't go. It always says go. Every time they put it up on the screen, I've never seen it say don't go here, kick the field goal. Either way, what becomes the more controversial thing? I don't know. Maybe it's just based on the opinion of the time. Or is it always going to be a polarizing thing? I'm looking forward to these discussions. I think it makes it more fun, but I know it's going to drive you crazy once it impacts your football team, and it's not just Dan Campbell in an NFL media market far, far away.
Hindsight is obviously the easy thing here, as Greg Olsen said on the broadcast. But forget about hindsight. What did you think in the moment? In the moment, when Dan Campbell, A, has another opportunity to go up 3 scores, this time in the second half, and chooses to go for it. That was the Reynolds drop, right?
Yeah.
And B, has the chance to tie it in the fourth quarter on the road in the NFC Championship, chooses to go for it. In the moment, what did you think?
Me personally, the Reynolds incompletion, I wanted him to kick the field goal. It's just like, Dan, for what? And he didn't really expand beyond, I don't regret my decisions. He didn't really dive into what he was feeling in the moment. I saw a couple of lines from Dan Campbell's press conference last night and what they played on SportsCenter after the fact. But in the moment, I'm like, all right, go up 3 scores. It doesn't always have to be kind of like the end of the Cowboys game. Cowboys lines in the regular season where they keep getting pushed back because, all right, Dan Skipper didn't report eligible, or there's an illegal formation situation, whatever. Fourth, or your 2-point conversion try goes from the 2 to the 15, and Dan's still going for it.
Yeah, no hesitation.
So
roll him out there.
So I'm like, this is behavior that I recognize, but also, no, you giant neck vein, chill out.
So you wanted them to kick it on the first 4th down try of the second half,
yes,
but you were okay with going on the second.
I was more okay with it.
Okay. I was flip-flopped on that.
Okay.
Because I felt like going for it on that 4th down when you're up 14 and still a chance to either make it a 17-point game or keep the drive alive, that still felt like foot on the gas for me, right? That you've got the lead on the road, keep chugging, keep going. And obviously the play was drawn up and it was there and Reynolds can't hang on. The second one is where I had a problem, where it's like the game is slipping. You are watching this game slip away from you. Tie it up. Go tie it up. You're on the road. Just do whatever you can to stay in the game in that moment. That felt like less of a keep your foot on the gas moment for me and more of a survival moment. But we don't know what they think of Michael Badgley in that moment as well. That's kind of the X factor. What's their confidence level in Michael Badgley in that moment?
It can't be that high.
Another Titans legend.
Are you familiar with the Money Badgers body of work? It can't be that high, respectfully.
He's been fine. He
wasn't fine here. Which, neither was Josh Reynolds.
Yeah, right? I guess Kendall Vildor wasn't good enough to play here, and he was a game away from the Super Bowl.
Well, Kendall Vildor he's not that good of a corner. He's a starting corner for the Detroit Lions. Let me not take that away from him. But I'm not here to nitpick. I understand your position, why that's the case. I just think it's a fascinating discussion because those are all the reasons that you love Dan Campbell until it blows up in his face, right? Because to your point, on the first 4th and 2, the play is good. Josh Reynolds doesn't make the play. But it's about, do you care? And the answer is obviously no if you're Dan Campbell. Do you care about how much you're furthering your risk for exposure to this kind of stuff? Because the level of blowback, if you don't get it, exceeds the level of, praise that you would get if you just kick the field goal and go up by your 3 scores. Dan Campbell is saying that he regrets nothing. I don't know if you have to feel that way. I don't know I don't know how genuine he could be in that. How much more genuine he could be in that. I trust him that he wouldn't regret the decision. I think it's easier to kind of backtrack on that stuff. And if you're an NFL coach, you have to have the courage of your conviction. So I genuinely believe that Dan Campbell thinks that he did the right thing there, and it just didn't work.
I believe that too. And I get not just the blowback nationally from media or what have you, but from your team, right? You trot out Michael Badgley there, and he misses. Then are your players looking at you like, oh, we're switching up now, right?
Yeah.
You're riding with us in that fashion all the way, and then we get to this moment, and now we're not going to trot out there.
No, it's a great point by you because they have done this thing one type of way the whole year long, and the players love it. And also, why wouldn't you? Detroit's offense is great. Detroit's offense is one that you should have more confidence in. That's the thing that drives me crazy about this. It's not, are they playing by the numbers correctly? It's, you trust this thing, a football game, to be decided more by a kicker than you do an offensive unit that you spend infinitely more time working with, executing with, game planning for, all of this. How can that script flip so quickly? That's the level of kind of cowardice that drives me crazy about teams that don't go for it more often.
He was always going to go in that moment. Always.
If it was always the Chiefs and the Niners in the Super Bowl, it was always Dan Campbell on 4th and 2. 615-737-1045 is the number. Mike in Nashville is next. Hey, Mike.
How you doing?
Good.
I know I got 60 seconds before the music plays, but there's been a lot of talking in and around the NFL being scripted and stuff, and I know that I don't know if you've talked a lot about it, but if you noticed last night in the game after halftime, once Brendan Ayuk made that incredible catch and the 49ers were down there inside the 5, Fox was showing Brock Purdy as one passing touchdown and 1 interception, 3 downs before he actually made that pass. And so I just thought that was very interesting. If you go back and look on that first down, his stat line shows 1 passing touchdown, 1 interception, and that was 2 plays before he actually did it. So to me, it lends a little credence to maybe it is, maybe it's not, maybe it's a signal thing,
Mike,
that there's a delay or whatever. I don't know, but
Mike,
I just thought it was interesting.
Mike.
Yes, sir.
Is the NFL rigged?
I think the NFL resembles the WWE in a lot of ways.
Okay. Thank you for the call. That's a more fun game to play. I'm down, but come on.
That Ayuk play, I don't know if there was an official touchdown signal, but remember he picked himself up and fell into the end zone, and there was a brief moment there of, oh, did he get touched down?
Yeah,
because we didn't know if Vildor actually got a hand on him before he got up and went into the end zone. So maybe that was a piece of that, of the Purdy passing TD was assigned to the graphic, and then they had to throw it back up, and it's first down. I don't know.
Somebody in the chat, the wheel on YouTube says, finally someone sees. Listen, I'll play the NFL this rigged game with you if you want. The case has never been stronger. The only way that it would have been better is if it was Taylor Swift versus Eminem in the Super Bowl, and then somehow they turned this into a joint Super Bowl halftime performance. That's the way that you would know that it was rigged, if the Lions made it. 615-737-1045 is the number. Ron Slay, a huge basketball game just down the street from us between Vandy and the Vols. We'll talk about it with Ron coming up next. I don't know how I could put any more respect on the name Dalton Knecht than the man is doing for himself in the last couple of weeks. Tennessee, Vandy here in Nashville over the weekend. 75-62 for the Vols. I've decided to change teams, Slay. I'm tired of watching losing basketball. I can't watch Indiana go on the road and lose to Illinois anymore. I'm declaring myself for the rest of the season for Tennessee. Will you accept me on this bandwagon?
Oh my God, Buck! This is what we come into, though. You can't just jump off the. What about the banana suit?
No.
What about all this?
That's 10 years ago. I hate them. I want to defund my basketball program. I want Mike Woodson fired. I want everybody the hell out of there. I wish I had Amy Adams Strunk money so I could do this myself. I can't. I'm wearing a Tennessee pullover today. They give me an aneurysm, Slay. I just want to watch good basketball. Please, Slay, take me.
We'll accept you. We'll accept you. You must cheer loud, though.
Whoa. So, dude comes along from northern Colorado and is hanging 25, 30 plus every night, and now you are ready to pledge your undying loyalty.
That's right. I got it on today. I got the orange on today. You see?
Very convenient by you.
No, it's not convenient at all. It's very strategic by me. This is all going according to plan. It's the fourth game that he's had at least 32. Knecht, Slay. What he did against Vandy, I mean, it's been this all season long. What can you say about him before we actually talk about the strategy of this team moving forward?
What I can say about him, Buck, man, and everybody listening, this is no longer an SEC Player of the Year conversation anymore. This is a National Player of the Year conversation. Of course, you got Zach Edey. What he's doing for Purdue is crazy numbers, but they fit kind of in line with what he did last year when he won it. And we also saw Oscar Tshiebwe not be able to get the Player of the Year coming off the same numbers as he did the year before. So I would think if he was able to keep this up, and not, of course, not at 30 a game, but if he were to have about 27 a game in conference play and get into the tournament and make a nice run, I don't see why he wouldn't be National Player of the Year.
Where are you right now?
The Amazon.
I'm getting the pedicure and the manicure. Wow.
Oh, nice. That explains the music.
No, you are not calling us from the pedicure chair.
I mean, do you want me on or do you not, Bug?
This makes me so happy. No, I'm honestly upset because we still haven't gone to get pedicures together, and this is why, because you're doing it during my time slot. I understand. Ron Slay joins us from the pedicure chair here on 104.5 The Zone. So, how Tennessee moves forward through SEC play, they're clear. If I'm not being overreactionary, is Tennessee the best team right now in the SEC based on the way that everybody is playing?
Yes, I do believe that. And to look at the losses of Auburn taking 2 L's, Alabama getting a big win, South Carolina handling Kentucky, I think that's where it lies. I mean, I think it's going to vary from week to week. Do I expect Tennessee to take a loss at some point? Yes, without question, especially on the road. But right now, I think that's where it is. You look at Tennessee, and to take it even further, Tennessee, Kentucky, Auburn, and that fourth spot is fluid, if you will. And I got South Carolina, honestly, in the fourth spot right now just because of the way they're playing.
Well, Slay, tough stretch then this week with that South Carolina team coming to Knoxville tomorrow afternoon, a team that just dusted Kentucky on their home floor last week, and then Tennessee goes to Kentucky on Saturday. I mean, everybody is sort of marveling at what Knecht is doing, but at the same time, I'm watching Slay, and I get frustrated in moments when I'm watching, Josiah Jordan-James attempt only 2 shots and pass up wide open dunks on the block to kick it out and keep the ball moving. Is he the guy? And if not, who is the person that you want to just pull more out of here, especially when we get into February and on to March and you think about what this team can accomplish, not just with what Knecht is doing, but with some of those other parts moving around him and starting to contribute some more?
Man, you gotta realize too right now, I think what's being done right now is a lot of sacrifice. So you got guys sacrificing in order to let Knecht be himself. And I don't think a guy that's a fifth year can lose it that quick. I do think when it's needed that Josiah will be there, and he's still doing intangible things. But in order for Adu to continue to be him, in order for Zakai to be him, in order for Dalton Knecht to be him, you needed other guys to sacrifice. Now, you got to look at it. You still won't leave Santi Vescovi open. You won't leave Josiah Jordan-James open. You won't leave Jordan Gainey open now that he's hitting shots coming off the bench. I thought that was the biggest part. And being able to get a guy like J.P. Estrella to come in and give another lift to the front court. So I think all the guys that are the guys you can depend on will be there. Who will it be? I think it's a slew of them. I think you have 8 guys to pick from. And I think that's the beauty in the team when you talk about the depth and how deep they can go. But with Dalton Connect doing what he's doing, you have to ride that wave. To disturb that wave to try to find somebody else in a groove would be foolish, in my opinion, especially guys that are in the flow of the game. And it would be different if they were just lost, like if Josiah was going to the line missing free throws, or if Santi was turning the ball over, or not getting steals, or not playing defense. The way they're flowing, I don't think you disturb this flow, and you got to trust that they'll be there when you need them.
TV Zone, Ron Slay here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Of course, you can hear him on 3HL from 3 to 6 weekdays. Can you do your own makeup yet, or are you still having TV people do it for you?
No, I'm still having them do it for me, but I'm watching now. So this year, when I go to the SEC tournament and I have to do it on my own, I won't be shiny after the first segment. Now I understand why you have to wear makeup.
You have to get through whatever masculinity is telling you that the makeup's not important. You need it for TV because you sweat.
It is, dog. And I never was like, I don't need no darn makeup, man. What I need makeup for? Then I looked at the screen. I was like, dude, why am I shining? And everybody else look cool. So now I know what to do. What did they tell me to do? I blot.
You
more.
blot. I love it.
Yeah. What were you doing?
He was just swiping it, scooping it with his hands, and painting it on like war paint.
No, they told me to do it like a T, so I was actually putting like a war paint T on my head. This was like, no, you got to spread it out. I was like, y'all said put a T.
Oh, my God. He's blotting his face while he's getting his toes done. Ron Slay, 3HL, 3 to 6. Thank you, buddy.
All right, go Vols, Buck. Can I get a go Vols?
You can get a go Vols because Indiana lost again. Again.
Oh, I saw it. All right.
Get out of here. Don't make me angry. I'm telling you, they ruined my Saturday. I was hanging around waiting for the Indiana game before I went out to meet some friends who were hanging out at a bar watching the rest of the college basketball slate. They ruined my day, Lucas.
It's okay.
I can't deal with
You're a Tennessee
season.
fan. You're safe now. You've got someone that can take over a game at any given moment. Not like Tennessee's had that guaranteed in the last few years. Nice to have that back.
Imagine comforting me with being, you're a Tennessee fan. It's okay. It's safe here.
You're safe here until you're not. Credit Vandy because they came out strong. They played really hard. They were up 10 in the first half. Yeah. And that felt like the type of game that if Tennessee just came over and just ran away with it from the jump 30-point victory, you wonder how Stackhouse makes it to the next game. Right? And they didn't. They hung around. They played really hard. Tennessee had to scrap and claw for that second half lead. And then from there, they kind of had to coast to the finish. But, yeah, it's been a tough ride for Vanderbilt so far.
So South Carolina is coming to Food City Center?
5:30 tomorrow, yes. South Carolina's in Knoxville. And then Tennessee heads up to Kentucky on Saturday. The type of stretch run that makes a big difference in winning a regular season conference title or not, these next 2 games.
Just quickly, because now Vandy is 5-14, and the only team worse than them is Missouri because they have one more conference loss on the season. They are at number 8 Auburn on the 31st.
Who's on a bit of a slide. They've lost back-to-back.
Is Stackhouse going to get the rest of the season?
Well, you're officially looking at, you want to make the tournament, you got to win the SEC tournament. That's where Vandy is right now. Because
they're make the tournament.
Yeah,
they're not making the tournament.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's their only path to the tournament at this point is winning the SEC tournament. So you're looking at a 5-year span of the Jerry Stackhouse era and going over in regards to the NCAA tournament. And if anybody told you that when Stackhouse was hired, that's what was going to happen, then nobody would sit there, look at you, and say he'll make it to a 6-year.
They haven't won an SEC game. Their last win was like 6 games ago against Dartmouth, Vanderbilt. It's bad.
By the way, real quick, with Slay, we've been doing these high school basketball games. I know a lot of people have been asking us to post them. That is up now. There is a 104.5 The Zone high school basketball game of the week feed with each and every broadcast that Slay and I have done this season at the high school level.
The Chiefs are inevitable. They're back in the Super Bowl. We're going to talk about it coming up next. We're also going to get into some news that the Titans fired Tim Kelly and Charles London as they continue to put together the staff under Brian Callahan. The implications of that coming up next.
It is 11:03. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. The matchup is set for Super Bowl 58. The Chiefs and 49ers will meet in Vegas on February 11th. On Sunday, Kansas City held off Lamar Jackson and the Ravens in a 17-10 win that the Chiefs led the whole way in the AFC Championship. Chiefs defense limiting the Ravens to 3 of 11 on third downs, and Travis Kelce caught all 11 of his targets for 116 yards and a touchdown. It's the fourth Super Bowl appearance of the Patrick Mahomes era in Kansas City. In the NFC, the Lions had a 17-point road lead at the half before San Francisco stormed back, outscoring Detroit 27-7 in the second half to win 34-31 and punch their ticket to Vegas. The Lions 1 for 3 on fourth down, not converting twice inside the Niners' 30 in the second half. College basketball on Saturday, 5th-ranked Tennessee trailed by 10 in the first half, but outscored Vanderbilt the rest of the way to win 75-62 and improve to 15-4. 5-1 in SEC play. Dalton Connect with 32 points. That's 5 straight games of 25 or more for the Northern Colorado transfer. Tennessee will host South Carolina tomorrow night. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
What's happening? Welcome in on this Monday. Whether you think the NFL is rigged or not, we're happy to have you. You can jump in and espouse your tinfoil hat conspiracy theories if you like on the phone. 615-737-1045 is the number. You can always do so in the far easier place to espouse ridiculous things on the internet, the F&M Bank chat. You can live stream the show. Hang out with us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. In the studio with Lucas Panzica and myself. Lucas is surviving, if not thriving, back there behind the glass. We've got a few things to get to, including the Titans firing of Tim Kelly and Charles London. What that means, who the latest names are in the coaching search under Brian Callahan. And given that it's Senior Bowl week, apparently we're getting closer and closer to mock draft Monday. Why aren't we doing them yet?
Well, we had plenty of football last night. Titans trying to fill out their coaching staff, at least starting that process. We got time, Buck. We got time.
Jim Wyatt is telling you don't have time.
He is. Jim Wyatt's first mock draft tour is officially out. We should do this. How many does Jim do? He does like 30 of them. There's so many.
Oh, like how many mock drafts does he tour, or how many versions does he produce?
How many mock draft tours does he, like mock draft roundups, where he lists out all of these national media members and who they are mocking to the Titans with that first pick?
I mean, however many weeks it is between Monday, January the 29th, and April the 25th.
Well, I think we should tally up the percentages of what position people are mocking to the Titans at 7 and see how that kind of evolves over time as we get to the draft.
Okay, but not yet, you're saying?
Oh, we'll get to it. I'll bookmark it.
Mock Draft Monday coming to a show very near you. So we won't do that yet. Jibo says, I heard Jim Wyatt is going to be a special guest at WrestleMania. I would love that. But Wyatt's not really a wrestling character, although he kind of is. With the visor and the pencils, still with the mechanical pencils tucked into the visor. Jimmy and the Hawaiian shirts, the Tommy Bahama shirts that he perpetually wears. A little bit of a character. Maybe not a wrestling character. What's he going to do? Stab somebody in the side of the neck with a pencil? We can workshop this later. Maybe when Bert comes back, because he'll need something to make him laugh because his Ravens choked yesterday, and he's very much a sad boy about it. Whenever he comes back from Baltimore, where he was to take in the AFC Championship game yesterday. Chiefs advance. Great performance in the first half by Kansas City's offense. Great performance in the second half by Kansas City's defense. really game throughout the course of the game. The Chiefs' defense is, I feel, why we're most talking about them being again in the Super Bowl for the fourth time in 6 seasons. Ravens make mistakes all over the place. They don't play a good game. Penalties, mistakes like Zay Flowers.
Oh,
it's a great play by the defensive back, though, Lucas. He's a rookie. He's stretching out for the end zone.
not even talking about that one. Talking about 2 plays beforehand.
Oh.
And maybe Zay Flowers fumbles on the goal line regardless of where they're set up. But the taunt there.
The taunt's bad.
I mean, you watch that game, and there was no question about who's been there before between both of those teams.
That is a great point. Lamar frustrated throwing his helmet. Not really. I mean, Lamar Jackson, and I think the world of him. I would argue that he's my favorite player. It's between him and Josh Allen, just for chaos mode that the two of them can create, that they're my favorite player to watch in football. You can tell who's been to 4 Super Bowls in the last 6 seasons and who has all the pressure on them in the world to just break through this one time. He's 28, Lamar. So is Mahomes. The resumes aren't even close.
I wanted to see him run it more. I wanted to see him just sell out, no holds barred, do what it takes.
But he's not done that this season, Lucas.
No, he hasn't. He hasn't. And I get do what got you here, but at the same time, and it's not like Josh Allen peels back, but I was talking about this the other week. Josh Allen in the playoffs, it's different in the way that they handle him because in the regular season, you watch Josh Allen get helicopter tackled for a 4-yard gain on 2nd down in his own territory in week 4, and you're like, dude, chill out, right? But in the playoffs, it's like, go, do your thing, right? Put your body on the line.
They did the opposite against the Chiefs. They toned him down, Josh Allen.
I would have liked to see a little bit of that from Lamar Jackson, too. And I imagine that's so hard to snap and clear, but I would have loved to see more than 8 carries. I mean, the best play of the day, apart from the deep touchdown to Zay Flowers, was the pass to himself.
That's absurd.
It was electric. That was insanity.
And I saw a lot of Titans fans just very quickly out there. Mariota did it first. Come on. Let's just appreciate them for what they are in the moment. I know some people like Will Bowling saying it tongue-in-cheek and stuff like that, but come on. Lamar is different than what Marcus did in that game. To see that highlight again from time to time, just really, it fades as the years pass and stuff like that. It's a ridiculously athletic play.
Like the type of play that if it's on, Mahomes' resume or Jackson's, is going to be remembered for years and years.
It's like Matt Stafford throwing no-look passes before Pat did it, and that's the Lions fans' perpetual complaint. Matt's been doing this for years, but nobody cares because we're the Lions. That's right.
But you know what jumps out the most about this game? The time of possession. The defense and ball control.
Completely lopsided.
37-30 for the Chiefs to 22-30 for Baltimore.
I mean, completely lopsided. The way that things end for Lamar, he's going to be talked about. Him and Josh Allen are in this purgatory. We talked about franchises in purgatory, right? And turns out there's even levels to the purgatory discussion because there's those who are just kind of hovering around this perpetual level of competitive, but not really. The Steelers, we don't trust them to do anything meaningful in the playoffs, but they get there. They win 10 games. You don't look at that. You don't fear them once the postseason starts. As of late, the last, 5 years of the Pittsburgh Steelers? It feels like end of washed Roethlisberger into Kenny Pickett and Trubisky and these kind of things. But then there's the level of purgatory, which is honestly it has to be even more maddening. We're getting to the divisional round. We're getting to the AFC Championship game. But it's Mahomes. Except yesterday, it really wasn't Mahomes. I mean, Pat made some great plays, right? It's the scrambles on 3rd down to prolong drives. It's finding the open holes in the zone with Travis Kelce. The mind meld that those two have. One of the dumbest completions I've ever seen in my life is a tipped pass that would have been an interception for anybody, except Travis Kelce comes diving somewhere off your screen to haul it in, and somehow it's a conversion for the Chiefs. It's just stupid.
When Mahomes is not taking over a game, because he wasn't yesterday, he's not making the mistakes. That's the thing. Lamar was making the mistakes yesterday.
Interceptions, strip sacks, It was all the things that the Ravens could not afford to do against the opponent that is most likely to capitalize on them. You hate to boil it down to as simple as what Lucas's analysis just was, but you could tell which team had been there before. And they're at home. Honestly, I think that made it worse on the Ravens. Ravens fans just we have one, so we have a more tapped in line. What do you think Bert's demeanor was from first half to second half? I can't even imagine. I hope Cheyenne was not there with him. I hope Bert went by himself. I hope Cheyenne did not have to suffer that while he's just pouting and miserable in the stands in the rain.
Well, it had to be miserable as a Ravens fan because of opportunity after opportunity after opportunity.
It was there for them.
I mean, your defense, the Ravens defense allowed 3 points on the final 9 drives of the Chiefs offense. That is an astounding second-half performance against Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs by Mike McDonald's defense.
And they wasted it.
They couldn't do anything with it.
And now, I mean, they're not in the same situation as the Bills, where the Bills are in cap hell and have to strip this thing down to the studs and figure it out again. But these are 2 levels of the purgatory discussion that we're having, and the thing that is the most consistent, Mahomes. I don't know what you do. I don't know what you do. I don't want to ever tell a fan base that it seems a bit hopeless. But this has Brady vibes, but worse. I don't think there's going to be like a 6-year drought in between the 3-year
It was
Super
almost
Bowl
a
runs.
10-year drought for Brady.
Was it that long?
Yeah, when you look back on it, it was 3 Super Bowls in the first 5 years as a starter, and then about 9 years of no rings for Brady before he ramped it back up as he got deeper into his 30s.
As long as he's healthy. I mean, yeah, the idea that Brady had 2 separate Hall of Fame careers is just absurd. But I don't know. Maybe we're prisoner of the moment. I don't see a dip like that as long as you have Pat Mahomes on your roster.
With the best defense and best offensive line he's ever played with.
And they're young. They've already done the thing of trading Tyreek Hill. The Chris Jones contract is something that they can maneuver. It's not they're already in a spot where they can reboot this thing pretty turnkey. Anyway. The Titans fired Tim Kelly and Charles London over the weekend. What does it mean? Are you happy about it? What do you want to see replace them? We'll talk about it coming up next. Welcome back to the show. So, overnight on Friday, or Friday late into the evening, Titans brass still working at the facility. They got a lot of stuff to get done before this thing gets off and rolling for real. Brian Callahan is starting to dive into moves on his coaching staff, both relieving people on Mike Vrabel's previous staff and contacting those that he wants to come in and interview for positions on his new Titans coaching staff. They're not going to the Senior Bowl. Callahan, and it doesn't sound like Rand Carthon is going either. They will have a level of representation. Carthon is apparently going to help Brian Callahan put his staff together, and that is why both of those gentlemen are going to remain in Nashville to make sure that they get that done and dusted so you can move on with the rest of that stuff. It's not, abnormal or totally abnormal. This is not for a general manager, for example, to not be at the Senior Bowl. It's not like they make every bowl, and there, again, are scouts, people like Chad Brinker, president of football operations, people that work under them that will go, that will scout these players, that will talk to agents and all this other stuff. So it's not something to be concerned about necessarily, but worth paying attention to. And a part of that.
Wonder if sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and a part of that is deciding that Tim Kelly and Charles London, two of the people on Mike Vrabel's staff, are out.
I was going to say, I wonder if the list of coaches present at Senior Bowl in Mobile is thinner than usual this year, with the amount of teams that are in the situation of the Titans or have yet to even announce their next head coach.
It's possible, because if you had a bunch of candidates, or if the people that you were looking to talk to were at the Senior Bowl, then it would make sense for you to go to the Senior Bowl, meet with them in person, do all these different kind of things. So I don't know the answer to that question. All I know is that they feel that it is a better use of their time currently to hang back, to focus on the coaching staff, because that's the most important thing next, right? In the immediate next of head coach hired, now what? Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl scouting versus offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, all these different types of things that you have to fill out an entire staff for. You understand why that takes precedent. So, as a part of that, Tim Kelly out. Karski reported this first, that Tim Kelly was told on Friday night that he was out. John Stretch, Vrabel's director of football administration, no longer listed on the website. Charles London first reported that from Jonathan Jones of CBS Sports. Charles London is now also relieved of his duties and told that they can pursue opportunities elsewhere. So whether you want to call it a parting of ways, whether you want to call it firing, whether you want to call it not being retained, whatever, they don't work here anymore. London is somebody that I think if you'd have asked 100 Titans fans, who on Mike Vrabel's staff would you want to keep, I bet you would have gotten something between 65 and 70 Titans fans saying, yeah, Charles London I'd be cool with. Or I think that's a good idea, whether that's as the quarterback's coach or the offensive coordinator or something in a role that allows him to continue to work with Will Levis, because Will Levis did well under Charles London. It's a good working dynamic from what I understand. Both have obviously spoken highly of each other in a public media setting. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done with Will Levis. But if Brian Callahan feels that needs to take a different direction, or does feel like that needs to take a different direction, then who the quarterback coach for Will Levis is next year is what he has to decide under his own terms. And apparently that person is not Charles London. Kelly. How would you describe Tim Kelly's 1 year as the offensive coordinator here? If I gave you better or worse than Todd Downing, in 2 years of Todd Downing, did you find the experience better or worse than what you just went with Tim Kelly?
Same. The results were the same, right? I suppose you hit
there was a slight statistical uptick in some categories, but there was also huge dips in red zone production and stuff like that basically even it out.
You had 2 games where the performance, specifically by the quarterback, was better than anything you saw with the Titans in 2022. They were Falcons and Dolphins with Will Levis. Otherwise, and those are the two games where you hit 28 points, something you didn't do at any point in 2022. Otherwise, it was largely the same.
D. Good says he's the non-alcoholic version of Todd Downing, which feels like a low blow. But I get the point. I get the pun. How bad or how underwhelming does your 1 year as an offensive coordinator have to be even remotely in comparison to the dude who got a DUI midseason and was not good here, objectively?
And I'm not saying that the offenses looked the same and the scheme was the same. The results were the same.
The results were the same. I would honestly argue that the results were worse.
Duck Falling on the F&M Bank chat says Tim Kelly had to call an offense with a hand tied behind his back. What did Todd Downing have to do?
Todd Downing had a bigger.
Who has dealt a worse hand? Todd Downing or Tim Kelly?
Downing.
Yes.
Downing lost Derrick Henry for a year and still found ways to help this. And listen, I understand that some of you would argue that they were held back by Todd Downing. But in 2021, Todd Downing and that offensive coaching staff had to figure out how to replace Derrick Henry and did so successfully.
Forget 2021, 2022. What did you have in 2022?
The same.
Robert Woods, your lead receiver.
You had a better offensive line group.
Yeah, and that's not saying hardly anything.
No, it was bad, but it was better. So if you're asking me who had the more difficult proposition, the roster was terrible here last year, of course. But if you ask me who did a better job problem solving against worse circumstances, it's Downing. In 2021, Vrabel gets the Coach of the Year credit, and it's not Todd Downing like revolutionizing the sport. They were still running the same offense. It was just Deontay Foreman and Dontrell Hilliard. There were some variations of what they were able to do because Hilliard gave him an extra receiving option. But it's no small thing that they figured out how to keep that season on the rails without Derrick Henry. That's not just something that you cast aside. So it's all bad. It's picking between the lesser of two evils. But that Tim Kelly is even discussed in that light, I think people had real hopes for him and them, if for no other reason than the bar was low. The bar was so low. And they still found a way, not to steal a line from Amy Adams Strunk statement when she fired Vrabel about meeting the moment. Tim Kelly definitively did not meet the moment.
Will you be surprised if any Vrabel assistants are retained on either side of the ball?
Assistants?
Yes.
Yeah, I would. If they totally clean house, I would be surprised, shocked. I'm not going to say shocked, because this is a pretty different situation that you're jumping to. It's not like malarkey to Vrabel, where you had guys like Arthur Smith who were kind of in different roles. Like I would be surprised, but not shocked. Like, if you're asking me if Bowen is going to keep his job, then I don't think Shane Bowen's going to be the DC here next year.
Art is in a category of his own of being a
survivor.
Right, just a pure survivor. How many tenures? I mean, it started with Munchak.
Munchak, through Wiz, through Malarkey, through Vrabel.
That's incredible.
Nobody does that.
Incredible.
Nobody does that.
But it makes sense to clean slate at the quarterback position. Like, if the argument is, well, keeping London would at least keep one consistent voice to Will Levis, I mean, isn't that kind of going against the purpose of hiring Brian Callahan? You brought him in to get his hands on the quarterback, to mold it the way he wants it.
The quarterback coach is still going to spend way more time with Will Levis individually than is Brian Callahan. Now, maybe Brian Callahan will spend more than Mike Vrabel did, for example, and not, I don't know what percentage of time Mike spent in the quarterback room versus the linebackers room or whatever the case may be, right? We don't have that at our disposal to make a judgment, but it's still like the person that Will Levis is going to spend the most time with is his position coach on a day-to-day, meeting-by-meeting basis, even if all hands on deck for the quarterback development.
Tyler and Scoop on the F&M Bank chat are lobbying to keep defensive line coach Terrell Williams on staff.
Well, we can talk about that here in a little bit because Terrell Williams is obviously going to be talked about a lot this week. He's one of the head coaches at the Senior Bowl. But other than, I think Rob Moore did a good job despite the circumstances. I really do. I think if you're going to hold stuff against him, then you have to look at, and I know AJ's special as a talent, but Rob Moore and AJ Brown really, really connected. That helped foster that growth and development from AJ. I think the job that Rob did with NWI is tremendously praiseworthy. But I would completely understand why offensively that coaching staff. If you ask me like what was going to look the most different, I would say clean house on offense, right? Like offensive line coach, wide receivers coach, quarterbacks. That makes the most sense. If I really wanted to bother the audience, I could make a case for Bowen. I don't think it's realistic, but I could. I don't think Shane Bowen's a bad coach. But I'm not going to advocate that it should be prolonged here, right? Like I think he can go coach elsewhere, and I'm not gonna bang the table and say Shane Bowen should be retained as defensive coordinator. But against the Bengals offenses,
I was gonna say
that's what I'm saying, Lucas. Like statistically, and you can try and you can devil's advocate the argument if you want to and say, well, what is he with Jim Schwartz versus without Jim Schwartz? And by the way, those are fair discussions. Those are fair. But Shane Bowen's defenses versus the Bengals are pretty damn good. And I'm cognizant of that if I'm Brian Callahan. I'm not going to do it because I know it would just be to drive you crazy, and I'm not that kind of combative.
Those were some of Shane Bowen's best games as the defensive coordinator of the Titans.
Against the Bills and the Bengals, Shane Bowen's staff, Shane Bowen as a coordinator, and the staff defensively, and if you want to include Mike Vrabel in this, you should, had their best moments. Finding ways to bother Josh Allen, to make him pump fake, to make him think for just a fraction of a second longer before he throws a pick or get the pressure gets to the quarterback. I'm telling you, there are a lot of people that hold them as a staff defensively in high regard. Even if, some of the ways that they had the corners play off all the time drives you insane. A lot of the principles are things that have succeeded in this league and continue to succeed in this league. Now, next-gen evolution of that is Mike McDonald and guys like that who have figured out the best possible ways to combat the McVay-Shanahan offenses. But it's worked quite well for quite a while. So, like I said, I don't know that I know they're going to talk to everybody on Vrabel's staff before they ultimately make a decision. But beyond that, it doesn't sound like there's any kind of real groundswell to keep a bunch of people.
Do we know of any candidates for either coordinator position under Callahan, apart from Nick Holes, the Jags passing game coordinator, and Denard Wilson, the Eagles defensive backs coach, who we know or has been reported they've requested to interview? Nope.
They've been real quiet about it. Those are the only two that have had any credibility to it. And really, even since kind of hearing initial discussions around, we brought up Thomas Brown, the Panthers offensive coordinator who interviewed here for the head coaching job. I haven't heard much about that in a couple of days. So I don't know how much juice something like that still has.
Wonder if he would be retained as Carolina hires an offensive-minded head coach in Dave Canales, who I don't know if he plans to call the plays.
I don't know. We'll see. So we'll talk about retention here in just a second with Terrell Williams.
There is one other name for the offensive coordinator job. Jeremy Fowler reported the Titans requested to interview Dolphins associate head coach and running backs coach Eric Studesville.
How did you say it?
Studesville.
Okay. I like your way better. So what's the common theme? Is there a common theme to be determined from Nick Holes or Brian Studesville?
Well, they've never been the primary play caller.
Sure, but like Jags offense, Dolphins offense, people are going to incorporate. Like Brian Callahan was asked on Thursday at his press conference, are you a 3-4 defense? And he said, well, yeah, we're multiple. So everybody's coming in not with necessarily, I mean, you're going to have a certain style of play, but it's not like you have to be, you have to be completely McVay Shanahan all the way to be able to operate the kind of offensive system that they want here. They can pull from a variety of different things, implement concepts, and make themselves multiple as an offense. You want them more multiple as an offense. You want them to run as many possible plays out of the same formations as humanly possible.
So Studsville worked with Callahan in Denver. He's been on the Miami staff since 2017, so he's made it through a couple coaching regimes in Miami.
And Miami is that has not been a stable situation in the last couple of years. Through lawsuits, through tanking for Tua, through $100,000 handshakes, through all of it. Tampering for Brady. That would have been a better movie than 80 for Brady.
I do not remember Studsville being the interim coach in Denver in 2010.
615-737-1045 is the number if you want to join the discussion. So we'll talk about the idea of retaining Terrell Williams specifically, the Titans defensive line coach. He's a head coach at the Senior Bowl. The pros, the cons. That's next. Everybody's headed down to Mobile. Well, not everybody heading down to Mobile. Titans going to have a pretty skeletal crew, sounds like, this week for Senior Bowl. Brian Callahan, Rand Carthon hanging back for the most part, but talking to a lot of people heading down to the Senior Bowl today. Titans radio crew. Rhett Bryan going to be on with us tomorrow, right? Get us ready for all the different prospects that we're talking about. Ramon Foster, Mike Keith, Coach Mack. We have plenty to discuss.
I feel like I can't let you keep going before admitting you were wrong about the pronunciation of Eric Studesville's last name.
I don't know how you're determining that. Are you watching YouTube videos?
I thought it was Studesville. But you said so confidently, no, it's Studsville.
Studsville.
So I did some digging. It does appear as though it's Studesville.
Oh, well, let me hear it.
Hear what?
The proof.
No, you find your own proof.
Well, that's not. Unfortunately, that's how it works more and more in society these days. But I'm not willing to settle for my word versus your word. Is why I'm wrong here. You're going to have to give me some more quantifiable evidence. You've provided me none other than I look something up on a monitor that you can't see. I'm right. You're wrong. That is not compelling enough.
Do
evidence.
your own research. Just know that it is pronounced Studesville, and the F&M Bank chat is backing me up. Just Google it. Just a simple Google. By the way, he survived 3 different head coaches in Miami.
So wait, who was before Flores?
He was hired by Adam Gase because they had the relationship from Denver. They worked together.
God, think about the coaches that the Dolphins have hired in the last 10 years. Remember Joe Philbin? How uninspiring that was. You go from, I think is it Philbin to Gase?
No, well, then Campbell kind of sandwiched in between.
Oh, as an interim. That's right. The Dan Campbell years were the most inspirational years of Dolphins football. Man Campbell.
I mean, since Nick Saban, it's been Cam Cameron, Tony Sperano, Todd Bowles, Joe Philbin, Dan Campbell, Gase, Flores, McDaniel.
Oof. How long does it take them to turn on McDaniel?
In Detroit? Or, I'm sorry, in Miami?
Mm-hmm. That offense didn't matter when you can't run the football.
Yeah.
That offense, I mean, listen, not a lot matters in Kansas City when it's negative 30 degrees with wind chill. I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt that a South Florida team was never going to fare well in those circumstances, but I mean, I don't think there's going to be a ton of patience for him down there. How long does the quirky, cute stuff fade with McDaniel?
Right.
Because I feel like it's this offseason. Now they start to pivot into wanting a Dan Campbell, Mike Vrabel type, and the Dolphins open up, right? Okay, quickly, Terrell Williams, Senior Bowl is my point. It starts this week. We'll have a lot of coverage down there, even though I'm not going. This first one I feel like I've missed in 2 or 3 years. Either way, prospect talk is what we will focus on. But as we looked at Titans coaches that were not being retained, Tim Kelly, Charles London, under Brian Callahan, a lot of people, I think, if you didn't say Charles London, the quarterback's coach, who you would like to keep from Mike Vrabel's previous staff, then I feel like a lot of people would go to Terrell Williams. He's the defensive line coach there, or has been. He's a longtime defensive line coach. His players love him. Jeff Simmons loves Terrell Williams. Big T, right? He's the head coach at the Senior. He's one of the head coaches for the Senior Bowl this year. It is him and Jets defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich, who will be the head coaches as a bunch of prospects try to audition. Underclassmen this year at the Senior Bowl, so we'll have a bit more variety to choose from. A lot more star power at the quarterback position than it feels like there's been in years past. And with the Titans having the 7th overall pick and the Jets having the 10th overall pick, one would think that there would be a larger representation from the Titans down there. But you understand that the coaching staff is the thing that they got to prioritize putting together, and that's why Callahan and Carthon are going to be here.
They have never worked together, Williams and Callahan.
So what's the argument just generally, and I know it's specific to the coach, right? We're going to have a different conversation around Terrell Williams than we would say if I posed to the audience, how about the offensive line coach, Jason Hoteling? Immediate no, right? Just because he's associated with the worst position group on the roster that arguably got worse as the season went on.
It would be a fair reaction. Who is it?
It's probably you. That email you sent me 2 hours ago of a live read that I was supposed to do. Who is it? Oh, I actually can't say that on the air. Why? You look foiled back there.
Just don't know if I believe you. Feel like you can conveniently say that about any email you get. But that's fine.
Well, sure, but I usually don't. Usually I'm willing to play your game. This one I cannot. This impacts both of us.
Let the speculation begin.
Do you want me to put you at risk by reading the details of this email on the air? I can.
Well, if I can be put at risk, then no. Only if you can be put at risk.
No, this, unfortunately for you, is something that we are tied together on, for better or worse. Anyway, it is going to be a different discussion for every coach that you go down the list on whether you want to keep him or whether you don't. The most people are going to say, no, clean house. If Terrell Williams is somebody who you want to continue to empower, because it's not just about new coaches getting new players, you have plenty of holdovers in that building. Is there enough benefit from a position coach who is a good position coach in every spot that he's been with? Now, he's worked with top players like Ndamukong Suh and Jeffrey Simmons, so those are nice things to have on your resume from Miami to Tennessee.
And you know who he did work with? Williams worked with Zach Taylor at Texas A&M.
And Zach Taylor has been very informative, according to Rand Carthon, to the Titans organization on the Brian Callahan hire. So it's not like they can't, it's not like Brian Callahan can't call Zach Taylor and be like, hey, this Williams guy, what's the deal?
Now, that was over a decade ago. Taylor was a GA
sure,
and a young coach.
But these connections are, especially like with the guys who make it to the league, there's only so many of them, right? There's so many different college coaches, so many different graduate assistants who don't make it. So the ones that do make it to the league, that have these prior connections, they keep in touch.
But would his role have to be shifted? Because he is the assistant head coach, Terrell Williams.
You could have that discussion with him. And if you say, hey, Terrell, we'd like to retain you. We love the work that you do. Your players clearly love you. It's not just the defensive line players that love Terrell Williams. You remember how hyped the Titans locker room was when Mike Vrabel said that Terrell Williams was going to be the acting head coach for a preseason game? A lot of people celebrated that internally. So stuff like that matters. Doesn't mean that that's something that is going to happen. I have no idea. They may have completely different plans from what we're speculating on here. But I know it would be well received from people who are still in the building. And if you're going to ask people to make changes, sure, you can make them sweeping. But there's no harm, unless you see a harm, in keeping some holdover stuff to make sure that the vibes are still good, if that makes sense. You try not to get rid of good coaches as well. Keith Carter, for example, is a different story. You said you hadn't seen the reports out of New York about how much the Jets players hate Keith Carter. Do you remember when I had that bit on Sambrailo retiring, or not retiring, but quitting, and how much Keith Carter's kind of presence played a role in that? Some of it was, tired of Lawan, missing the amount of time, having to go in short notice, all that stuff. But Ty Sambrailo just kind of quit on the Titans. A big part of that was how much he did not vibe with Keith Carter, the offensive line coach. Apparently those vibes are still with the Jets. So those are things to keep in mind. Brian Callahan has been asked a lot of questions about Will Levis. He has spoken a lot about Will Levis from a variety of different angles. So we're going to go through everything that the new Titans head coach had to say about the quarterback position here moving forward and what you need to be paying attention to the most. The final hour is next.
It is 12 o'clock. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. The matchup is set for Super Bowl 58. The Chiefs and 49ers will meet in Las Vegas on February 11th. On Sunday, Kansas City held off Lamar Jackson and the Ravens in a 17-10 win in the AFC title game in Baltimore. And in the NFC, the Lions had a 17-point road lead at the half before San Francisco stormed back, outscoring Detroit 27-7 in the second half to win 34-31, as it's a Super Bowl 54 rematch. Of course, the game that the Kansas City Chiefs won for Pat Mahomes' first Super Bowl title. It is Mahomes' fourth Super Bowl appearance of his Kansas City Chiefs career. Brian Callahan starting to fill out or work on filling out his coaching staff as the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. Offensive coordinator Tim Kelly and quarterbacks coach Charles London will not be retained by Callahan, as the Titans reportedly have requested to interview Dolphins associate head coach and running backs coach Eric Studesville, as long also with Nick Holes, the Jaguars passing game coordinator. Buck didn't know how to say Studesville's name. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
What happened there, bud? What happened?
I think I was trying to say as well as and got hung up for some reason.
It happens.
I was really struggling almost as much as you struggled to even know the name of a Titans offensive coordinator candidate, much less pronounce it.
Is it bad that I'm now actively rooting against him so I don't have to get his name wrong in the future? Just implicit bias. Who's to say? Welcome back to the show. It's the final hour. Been fun for the first two. We hope you are enjoying yourselves as well. You can jump in on the phones. You can interact in the chat. We've got some phone calls to get to here in just a second. 615-737-1045 is the number. Of course, you know that the Super Bowl matchup is set between the Chiefs and the Niners. Championship weekend concluding. Detroit blowing a lead. Baltimore choking. And you have the results that you get of Kansas City and San Francisco in the rematch, as Lucas correctly said before he hit all the speed bumps in his breaking news update. As we get ready for the Super Bowl around here, and of course 3HL is going to the Super Bowl, so that'll be a great time. Slay in Vegas Slay in Kirby in Vegas sounds like my nightmare. Having just gone to Las Vegas this summer and dragging what was left of me back afterwards, I'm excited for them. I look forward to their stories. I don't know that I could keep up with Kirby or Slay. I know that I could not keep up with Kirby or Slay in Vegas. I couldn't keep up with them in Los Angeles when we went a couple of years ago. So I'm happy to stay home in the comfort of my space and let them go.
Can barely keep up with Kirby in Indianapolis. Doesn't matter the city.
He really did run us through the ringer. I got the worst of it, I felt like, the next day, but that's because I went face first into the shrimp cocktail that they were bringing around from St. Elmo's at, for some reason, like 9 a.m. at the Combine. It was a mistake. But, yeah, Kirby at the Combine is a nightmare unto itself. Although everybody at that bar, every coach that Kirby came into contact with, everybody seemed to have the time of their life around Allen Kirby. I don't think any of them actually believed his stories, but that's, the charm of Kirby. You just nod and smile. Brian Callahan did more than nod and smile at his introductory press conference. He had answered a bunch of different questions, and of course, there are a bunch of different questions to ask about how much Will Levis factors into the future here and how much of the appeal of this job had to do with the fact that they have a cost-effective quarterback in place. So, Callahan, did you notice this at the press conference? Because you were there in person. Did you notice before we play this audio of him talking to Will that he kind of backtracked a little bit before it? I don't know if it's in the audio. Let's hear it first. This is Brian Callahan on making contact with the Titans quarterback.
I called Will I don't even know what day it is anymore, but I called Will a few days ago after I got the job, And then I saw him here today. He was working out, so I got a chance to catch up with him. I told him he's leaving town, I think, tomorrow morning, but he'll be back. But I've really enjoyed getting to know him. I can't wait to get to work with him. He's got a lot of really special physical talents that I'm excited to go see if we can make better. And everything about him so far has been fantastic, and I'm excited to get to go further down into it.
Did you catch that first part?
I have. I called Will last. Or I don't even know what day it is anymore, but
when did you
called
call
Will
him?
a few days
all right,
ago.
That's all right. When did you call him? Last week? Well, that's a no-no. Don't give away the game. It's the only time I heard him backtrack in the press conference when he accidentally might have said that he called Will Levis last week. Of course, not getting the job until this past week. Don't even know what day it is anymore. I should start using that more. Didn't you accuse me of using an argument or an excuse for my sick day a couple of weeks ago that you couldn't push back on? Food poisoning is perfect.
It is. It's the best sick day excuse.
Now, it was actual food poisoning, but who's to say?
That's exactly what someone that didn't have food poisoning and wants you to think they did would say.
Trippin' Titan says, "Oh, good job, Buck. Get him in trouble." Listen, he caught himself. That's all that matters. But made contact with Levis. Levis in the building. Levis still hanging around town. He's here working out. That's been consistent. And it's something that I think that he's emphasizing, right? What was the thing about, Mariota would always take the wide receivers and the tight ends to Los Angeles in the offseason. Tannehill is in South Florida, so that's where guys and a lot of guys are based out of South Florida, spend the offseason in South Florida or Los Angeles. It's not like that's uncommon. But Levis plans to stay here and continue to work, especially with a new coaching staff coming in. There's value in that. And also he's a bit of you got to back him off every once in a while, it seems like, which is good. You'd rather it be that than the opposite. So what is the most attractive part of Will Levis to Brian Callahan as the Titans head coach?
Or how much did that attract him to the job?
Yes.
Yeah, that part is attractive. I thought that Will was a really good player coming out of college. And I thought when you watch him play this year, you saw really growth. I mean, you saw him learn. The NFL is hard. It's hard on quarterbacks. It's particularly hard on young ones. And so I saw a lot of really positive things. Some of the throws, some of his competitive instincts that he put on tape were really impressive. And so I'm excited to get to dive more into that and how can he get better from year one to year two and keep putting in position to have success, and so we can score some points on offense.
Oh, damn it. Sue Ann. Now I have to take the L. Sue Ann has tweeted us. Studesville, pronounced, and she gives me the pronunciation, pronounced Studesville, joined the Miami Dolphins in 2018 and was named the team's associate head coach and running backs coach in 2022. I can't push back on Sue Ann.
From the Dolphins official website.
Okay. So, yes, that's Brian Callahan speaking about the part that is attractive about Will Levis being in this situation and scouting Levis, understanding what his skill sets were, what kind of offense he operated well in. That, of course, having to do with why Brian Callahan was hired here. They have to get the best out of the quarterback that they have, and they think that they can do that within the scope of what Brian Callahan brings. All right, checks all the boxes. Now, Brian Callahan on 3HL, talking about the body of work that Will Levis has had, both as a professional athlete and as a college player. There are some good nuggets in here from that full 3HL interview that you can see or hear on their podcast page.
Yeah, I've watched all his snaps, and I watched him coming out in the draft, and I had a high opinion of him then. After I watched him play this year, I continue to have a high opinion of him. And what I like about him is he's physically very talented. He's big, he's strong, he can make all the throws. But what you see in his games this year in the NFL is just how competitive he is. Mm-hmm. And that wins for you in the NFL. If you have guys that physical tools and you got the competitiveness to match. And as I get to know his personality and how he sees the game, that's going to be a really big part of how we go about running the offense. But everything I see tells me that he's got a chance to be a really good player. And I'm excited about that. And that's, I want to get to work now. That's the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
There are rules against that, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's why they put them in place for people
right.
like me. But I'm incredibly excited about his potential and what I've seen and what he's done. There's a lot of growth that happens between your first year in the NFL and in your second. And I think what's going to be great for Will is he's going to have the reps to go with it. He's going to have all the OTAs and training camp, and he's going to feel a whole lot better going into this season than he did last year. And I think that's the key is you're trying to kind of steadily get better every day. And for him, it's going to be a big part of his process. But as far as the tools go, I mean, he's got a full toolbox, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see what tools we get to use.
And so, with the tools that Brian Callahan sees on tape that he has to use, he did another interview with Ramon, Kayla, and Will. That was on Friday. Again, you can check that out in their podcast page, also on the Zone's YouTube channel, about how Brian Callahan, as an offensive coach, is going to help Will Levis find where the answers are within his offense.
The starting point's always going to be, this is going to be a great experience for Will because he gets a lot of the reps now that he maybe didn't get his first year. He was in competition, and rightfully so, he should have been. But now you get a bunch more time, and the focus is solely on doing everything that you can to help him succeed. And so the way you teach, the detail and how you talk about progressions, just like you said, here's one. At some point, maybe you guys get a chance to see what these install sheets for the quarterbacks look like and the notes that they have on them. And it's a lot of information. And so the best way I can explain it is there's a detail to it. And as you rep these concepts, the idea is that you're repping it versus all the different coverages. And so by the time you get to the game, there is no indecision. And Will should know from the snap point that I have one, I don't have two, I got to get the three. And that's how you improve a completion percentage. That's how you improve his ability to distribute the ball. And again, every defense is different too. And so, like you said, there is weeks where, we might not throw to our top receiver because he's going to be clouded or doubled. And the guys that got to go win are the tight ends and the backs. And there's a lot of schemes that you face that do things like that. And so as you teach the system, you teach them where the answers are. And our goal is always going to be for the quarterback to have all the answers and all the tools available to him. So as he improves and gets more mastery over our system, now he can make checks. He knows where the ball has to go, and he can do it very quickly. And I think that also helps the pass protection part as well. If you're playing on time and making good decisions, usually tends to help those guys up front as well.
All right, very thorough.
Joe Burrow's completion percentage in that year 1 to year 2 jump that Brian Callahan talks about went up 5 percentage points. 65.3 his rookie year, where he only played 10 games before the ACL. 70.4 in his sophomore year that preceded the Super Bowl run. There was a huge year 2 jump for Joe Burrow. Now, Brian Callahan and that Bengals staff had their hands on Joe Burrow during his rookie year, unlike they did with Will Levis. But you saw a massive jump from year 1 to year 2 with Burrow.
So a lot of times it's described as a sophomore slump for NFL players. Now, of course, there's nothing like quantifiable to that. That's very dependent on the individual, on the situation, on the rate of injury, all the roster parts around them. So it's not just something that you should put in an umbrella, basically. How they go about this has to be very specific, has to be very detailed, has to be very focused. And I think Callahan kind of spoke to that, where he said, yeah, coming in, not knowing how things were done here under Vrabel necessarily, but coming in, he's in competition. Will Levis is the third quarterback on the roster until when? Until week 8.
Yeah, after London, for sure.
Yeah, week 8. So that's a huge shift in focus, in time spent, in reps taken, especially when you've come through training camp the way that you did, and the injury robbed you of some critical moments there. So, again, we can't predict how healthy Will Levis is going to be, but that he will at least have the opportunity to be the sole focus of everything moving forward is massive here. A comment in the F&M Bank chat, Emmett Jones on YouTube says, anybody ask Callahan about Malik Willis as a viable backup? I did not hear it in the 2 interviews that he did with the other shows. We did not ask him about it in the press conference. I have not heard Brian Callahan asked about Malik Willis, but at some point, I'm sure that we will Ask him that question.
No guys of a competition, though, this time around.
None. No. Just a lot more that is clearly outlined across all spectrums with this organization. We'll see if that pays dividends for him. Take your phone calls coming up next. The case to look at a wide receiver with the 7th overall pick. I don't think any stronger case was made until this weekend, and I'll explain what I mean by that. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
Life is busy. We could all use some extra time in our day, which is exactly why Two Rivers Ford offers mobile service. We'll bring the service to your driveway at no additional charge. Oil changes, brakes, batteries, the certified technicians at Two Rivers will perform basic maintenance on your vehicle wherever you are, so you'll have more time for moments like this. Schedule your mobile service appointment by scanning the QR code or calling Two Rivers Ford today.
totally removed from that, but I'm willing to hear the argument for wide receiver. I'll explain why here in just a little bit. 615-737-1045. You can jump in. Trey is in Nashville up next. Hey, Trey.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Good.
Hey, but I wanted to ask you, I know you've been around the Titans for a little while. You know, I remember when you started, like, a long time ago.
I appreciate that.
Hey, you know me by a different name on the other show, but anyway, do you think Will Levis is the answer?
Oh, that's a big question. Do I think he's the answer? Can he be the answer for like the next 2 years? Can I do that? Is that too scared? Too cowardly?
No, that's the best way to cop out of this, to say, yes, he is.
He is the immediate answer.
He is the answer. We just don't know if it's right or wrong. Like, the Titans have filled out the A, B, C, or D on the test. They filled out the little hole. That is the answer.
He is the answer.
They'll get the results back
but we don't
in a
know
couple years.
I like that. That's a good way to put it. I mean, okay. Yes. In the context that we've just described it, he is the immediate answer. What they do with him from here, what he does unto himself here, will determine how much longer he gets to be the answer. I don't know what Will Levis is as a starting quarterback. I know that it's a fun idea and that there are traits there that I really like. And while a lot of people I'm sure the more that he is out there in the public sphere, the red-faced screaming stuff will probably be something that people use against him the way that it does. You know, Tom Brady does not look like the most endearing figure when he's red-faced and screaming at offensive linemen, right? People don't like that from Brady. So I don't know at what point it turns from competitive juice to, that guy's just whining, just complaining, just out of control, whatever. I like it. I like Will. I think he's got the right demeanor. I think he's got the right approach. The idea of the level of competitiveness that he brings is not something that you can coach from these guys, and so that he has it, that kind of gutturally makes you feel good. That you can work with this thing, right? You can work with Will Levis. That's how I feel about Will Levis.
Players and coaches. The way a lot of veterans kind of took to Will Levis this past season meant something to me.
But Trey's not answering or asking me that question within the context of, hey, can you do something with this guy? When I hear that question from a Titans fan, is he the answer?
Is he going to lead us to glory? That's what the question
is. Is he the franchise? Is he the next 10 years of Tennessee Titans football? The answer to that is, I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea. I don't know how anybody could have an idea. All that you can discern from Will Levis's rookie season and the sample size that he produced within that, or did not produce, is that he belongs out there as an NFL player in ways that the guy that was in front of him for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, Malik Willis, did not. There is a substantial difference between those two levels of operation. And that as a foundational starting point is great for Will Levis.
Section 118 on the F&M Bank chat says, Levis gets this year to prove himself, or we need to move him to a backup role to learn.
No, once you unbox that, there's no putting the quarterback back in the box. That's not how this works. Like, you either Jordan Love your way through, Aaron Rodgers your way through, Patrick Mahomes sat as a rookie, right? Until, like, I think the end of the season they put him in against the Broncos, and then the following season when they cut Alex Smith, he was the full-time guy. Or, more likely, you're C.J. Stroud, you're Will Levis, you're the starting quarterback, and if we don't figure it out here, then you have your rookie contract to figure it out. Whether you extend these guys or not, they can make it a harder question to answer, i.e. Tua or Herbert. $52.5, $50 million a year. It's not all as cut and dry as Burrow. Think about how complicated a conversation or overcomplicated a conversation we made Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is worth that contract. Lamar Jackson is the kind of player that you pay. And yet all of us spent months wringing our hands over the idea of Lamar Jackson as a second contract quarterback. No, that's the obvious. Burrow is the obvious. Levis is not obvious yet. He has the opportunity to make it more obvious.
You said last week that, in your opinion, Rand Carthon gets a clean slate.
Yep.
Here, that he gets a mulligan from last year.
Mm-hmm.
Does Will Levis get a clean slate?
Yeah.
Working with an entirely new coaching staff, probably new players around him in a different era.
For sure. For me, again, I can only answer the question from my perspective. We determined that mulligan was the better phrase than clean slate, because clean slate implies that you're just absolved of all your previous, failings and stuff like that, and you can't do it that way. But I'm willing to give everybody of consequence who's kind of just getting here a redo.
But it's not like Levis necessarily needs a mulligan from his rookie year, right? He didn't shank it off the tee box into the woods.
No.
Right? I mean, the ball landed somewhere on the fairway. But there were more positives than negatives to take away from Will Levis's rookie year. I think we'd agree, right?
Yeah. If we're going to do all golf metaphors, then yes, he needs to improve his short game.
Perfect.
Because I got no questions about the driver. The driver's aces all the way, right? He's ripping that thing. But the short game,
he's clearing the green.
Little touch, little nuance. Needs a better short game, Will Levis. He's probably a great golfer, too. God help us if this ever gets back to him. He's probably like, no, you idiots. I'm way better than any of you at golf.
Definitely better than me.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if he's ever stepped foot on a golf course before. He's better than me.
I pick up golf clubs once every 6 months, it feels like. That's about the extent. So for him, yes, he also gets a mulligan. In the same way that Spears does not need any kind of absolution from anything. All reviews from Tajay Spears' rookie season were positive, right? I mean, he wasn't a perfect player. There were some moments where I'm sure he would have liked to have done better or executed better in one spot or another. But for the most part, Tajay Spears. But I'm putting them all in the same box. Levis, Skoronski, Spears, Rand, everybody who was a part of this thing in their first year with whatever the hell that was, redo. Okay? Redo. New coaching staff, new system, new terminology, new assistants, new position coaches, redo. And hope to God a new offensive line. I mean, just so much is predicated on that. Which brings us to this conversation about my hardline stance last week. Don't take anything but an offensive tackle at 7 or God help you, right? I'm not going to incite the riot for you, but I'll turn the other way. I'll turn a blind eye if Titans fans start a riot if the team doesn't pick a tackle at 7. That's what I told you last week. And I'm watching Jared Goff have protection. I'm watching Lamar have protection. I'm watching Mahomes have protection. Protection that matters. Offensive line play matters. I don't need to emphasize that to you. You know how bad it has been, how much it's devolved over the course of the last 3 seasons, and how much rebuilding that organically through the draft matters. All that to say, 7, number 7 overall, does it absolutely 100% have to be an offensive tackle? I'm watching Penei Sewell block for Jared Goff, and I'm watching Josh Reynolds drop passes.
And you're watching what Jamar Chase has done over the course of the last 3 years,
where he's always open. And he makes the quarterback right. I'm watching Hopkins this year. He doesn't have any protection. The quarterback play is average to below average, no matter who's back there. Rookie Levis, veteran Tannehill, Willis, lost and running all over the place. But Hopkins makes the quarterback right more often than not. And he does so with bad protection in front of the quarterback. It's a lesser of two evils discussion. And I'm still, if the best left tackle on the board is available to you at 7, so help me God, you take him. But I'm not as hard-lined about it as I was a week ago, having watched this weekend of football play out. It doesn't matter if you have the protection if the players downfield can't make the plays. If they're not there to come up for you big in those moments. If MVS does not make a substantial improvement in the postseason, how many of these great Mahomes closing moments matter down the stretch? Because he's got the protection. But the skill position player still needs to make the play. Dan Campbell, the discussion around him is different if Josh Reynolds comes up with that 4th and 2. There's no perfect way to answer the question. You have to find ways to win. You can't have the best talent across the board. This is not Alabama or Georgia in college. You have to find places to do more with less. But I'm just not as entrenched in my position, even as I still want them to take at least 3 offensive linemen in this draft class with 8 draft picks. I'm not, like, if they traded out of 7, took a tackle in the 2nd round, and somehow found their way into Malik Neighbors or something like that, I'm not going to be overwhelming. I'm not going to be like 100% sold on it because, of course, their offensive line will still have questions. But at least I see what they're trying to get accomplished, and I understand the value of just reliable playmakers down the field, even when the protection is not always reliable.
Well, we have this conversation because we know what Brian Callahan prioritizes offensively in the passing game, and we look back, obviously, at 2021, taking Jamar Chase over Penei Sewell at 5, despite a desperate need at that spot for the Bengals at that time. But that is the example that we cite, right? That Callahan was a part of that staff. They chose the receiver need, and it obviously paid off for them. But how much of a special case was that? Top 5 pick, Jamar Chase, elite. I mean, Jamar Chase didn't play a snap the year before and was still considered the top wide receiver prospect in that draft.
It was questioned media-wise. Football people would tell you, no, there was never any dispute about what Jamar Chase was going to be, right? Because we all talked about he's had a year off football.
Yeah,
Caleb Farley, a year off football, right? Like,
Devontae Smith just won the Heisman. I mean, he just had this crazy year for Alabama in the COVID year. Still Jamar Chase, the best prospect in that draft. And then on top of that,
he played college football with
the LSU connection. And how much we know now Brian Callahan and that staff prioritize putting players in comfortable position. What better way to make Joe Burrow comfortable than bringing in his old pal and his number 1 target in college, Jamar Chase, who happens to be the best prospect at his position in this draft.
You want to find a Kelsey for your Mahomes.
Right.
You want to find a Waddle for your Tua. You want to find a Chase for your Burrow. You just things, because it's not always going to be comfortable in the pocket. In the NFL, you're going to have to deal with muddy pockets, like the protection, whether it's because you've got better defensive linemen than you do offensive linemen in today's league, things that you can do to mitigate the lack of 100% of the time clean pockets, off schedule plays, red zone type stuff, right? Where Brian Callahan, we've played that audio before, we've talked about his quote saying that's the place where you create the most off script. And how can you have that mind meld with a level of skill position player like Levis and Hopkins seem to be developing? But what else can you provide to Levis that's going to make him inherently comfortable? Now, you don't have one of those guys.
That's what I'm saying. You don't have that special case for Will Levis in this upcoming draft. Is Marvin Harrison Jr. going to be available at 7?
No.
The elite can't miss wide receiver prospect in this class.
So whomever you get for Levis is going to be a different discussion than is this Chase one, because you had that pre-existing connection. That helps so much. You cannot recreate reps. You cannot recreate these reps.
That probably pushed that decision over the top, right? Between Chase and Sewell.
Not having been in their draft room, I can only speculate that, yes, of course, 100% that pushed it over the top. It's not as clean here. Will Levis is not Joe Burrow. Not as a prospect, not as a heading into year 2 player. The Titans' offensive line is worse than the Bengals' offensive line, even though the Bengals didn't have a good offensive line in front of Burrow. They are the worst. But to hear Brian Callahan tell it, it's not just about the offensive lineman. And again, this is the correct answer to the question about solving the Titans' protection issues. This was Brian Callahan on Thursday at his introductory press conference.
There's a lot of things that go into protection. Some of it starts with as simple as you got to go win. You got to win versus tight coverage. Protection is an everybody problem. The quarterback's got to get rid of the ball on time. They have to work through progressions quickly. So to say that it's a specifically the offensive line needs to fix the protection problem, I don't agree with that. I think it's a holistic offensive issue if you have protection problems, and there's a lot of ways you can help weaknesses, highlight strengths, and everybody's involved in the process. As far as profiles of offensive linemen and players, obviously you're looking for the guys that are great at pass pro. You're looking for guys that can anchor, guys that got great length. We'll talk about all the traits at a later date, but schematically you can help a ton. You can chip, you can bang edges. Backs got to be fantastic in pass protection. They got to know who to block and how to block them. So it's a holistic offensive issue, and so our job is to find a way to make sure everyone knows all the specifics of what we're trying to get done, and then they can technically go execute it.
It's the right answer to the question because you can't just solve it. Like what they need to get done as a protection plan is not immediately solved by drafting a rookie left tackle. Even if they take the best left tackle at 7, he's still going to be a rookie left tackle in the NFL, going up against grown men with years of skill training, technique training, strength and conditioning. It's hard for rookie offensive linemen. So even if you do make that call, you are still going to have to compensate for certain deficiencies. That's why it's not as cut and dry at 7, and it took me this weekend watching more football to kind of come around on this point. It's not just as cut and dry as I wanted to make it, or I think as a lot of people are going to make it, which is no, you idiots, take the tackle at 7 no matter what.
Is that about to be the discussion in the lead up to the draft with this team specifically, left tackle versus wide receiver for the next 3 months?
Should be. And then everybody lose their minds when they take an edge player. or Bowers, right? Brock Bowers. But, I mean, it's not like that. Like I can't say with 100% confidence the Titans have a good tight end room. I know they got better as the season got on before Wiley got hurt, but anyway. Last call for phone calls, 615-737-1045. We'll update the polls. We'll take those. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone.
I don't know. Sure. That is not my strength. Maryland blue crab. I think you're correct, but that is not my strength.
But I'll do pasta stuff.
You want to talk to me about pasta and pizza and that's fine. Stereotype away. But yeah, Maryland crab is not my spot of strength.
Either way, we'll see. We'll see what Bert looks like, smells like, feels like when he gets back in here tomorrow. We'll get a full update. William is in Hendersonville next. Hey, William.
Hey, Buck. Thanks, man, for taking my call. Say, I'm not nearly as knowledgeable as you guys, but I look at Will Levis and say to myself, was his worst game any worse than Ryan Tannehill's worst game as a, quote, proven NFL quarterback? And from what I could see, he belongs in the league and needs to stay our number one quarterback until proven otherwise. I'll take your thoughts, man.
Oh, no. I 100% agree, William. We are aligned that way. He's what you got. Like, make it work now becomes the question. There's no disputing that Will Levis in year one belongs as a starting quarterback in the NFL. How what the heights are that he achieves are where our question marks still lie. But there's something there. We can all agree that there is something there.
Yes.
Which is as base level as we can do that. But you have to have that as a starting point, right? We knew immediately that Malik, I mean, maybe not immediately. Maybe it took the second start for you to be like, oh, no, this isn't feasible. This isn't sustainable.
What was his worst performance?
I would argue Tampa. Tampa was pretty bad. I mean, had he not made plays down the stretch, it would have been Miami, right? He threw the interception to the defensive lineman for the pick six. They had the strip sack to set up another Dolphins touchdown, right? There's a couple. The Miami game ended up being miraculous because they went nuclear en route to finishing that game. What made it more miraculous was the way that they bounced back from being down 2 scores with under 3 minutes to play or under 4 minutes to play. Robert is in Nashville next.
Yay! Hey guys, how you doing?
Good.
Hey, I was calling to talk about if Jalen Daniels is projected to go to the Falcons at 8 and the Titans are picking at 7 and they don't take that dude's a superstar. To win your division, you got to basically have the best quarterback of the division. And you guys know Will Levis is not – his ceiling is maybe a second-tier inconsistent quarterback. He is not a game-in and game-out Patrick Mahomes type. And if the goal is to win the Super Bowl, you want a quarterback that's as close to Mahomes as we get. And I'm telling you, Jalen Daniels loves the game of football. What do you have, 60 touchdowns last year and like 4 interceptions and runs like a damn big buck deer? Man, I'm just I don't hate Will Levis. After 50 years of watching quarterbacks, I think he's a second-tier guy at the best. You know he's not up there with all these other Joe Burrow and all them. So that's how I feel about it, and I'll be the OC this year, so we'll see what I do.
Oh, it's our guy. It's future offensive coordinator of the Tennessee Titans, Robert in Nashville. Foolish of us to doubt his expertise.
Sweeping proclamation on Levis after 1 year.
Yeah, I'm not prepared to do that. But we'll have plenty of time to do it. We got a whole nother football season. It's just year 2, kids. Buckle up. Polls, please.
Hello, my name is Borat. There is a show in America called Buck Rising. I like very much. As a man named Lucas, like my producer Azamat Bagatov, will update something called Final Pollings. I'm very excited, very excited. Do it, Lucas. La, 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 la.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, who sells below MSRP on any non-specialty new Ford. Who choked harder on Sunday, Lamar and the Ravens or Dan Campbell and the Lions? Photo finish here, 51% say Lamar and the Ravens.
It's the Ravens.
You think it's the? I mean, they had the worst performance, but if we're talking about choked,
no, it's the Ravens.
A 17-point lead at halftime, dropping balls and fumbling and dropping interceptions.
They were overwhelmingly better than every other team in football this year. You know how hard that is to do at the NFL, and they choked.
Man, they both did.
Sure.
Did you agree with Dan Campbell's decision-making in the second half? 68% say no, practice common sense. 32% said yes, it's what got you there.
That's revisionist history. So I'm more inclined to be in the minority on this and say, listen, don't change up who you are. That is what got you there. But it's a much harder argument to make today than it was 2 days ago.
Did the Brian Callahan hire change your opinion on what the Titans should draft with that 7th overall pick? 76% are still saying no, take a left tackle. 24% are saying yes, I'm open to wide receiver.
I am open to wide receiver, though my default would be offensive lineman, then a wide receiver.
Name a better player in the SEC right now than Dalton Knecht. David says there's not one. Knecht should be the National Player of the Year. Titans Truths on Twitter says he's got the name and the skills and the stats for Player of the Year.
Edie's still going to be the Player of the Year, which makes me sad and I hate because his big dumb face. But Dalton Knecht has an argument, absolutely. Not just the best player in the conference, but the best player in the country.
Couple of submissions for Antonio Reeves for Kentucky. I have not seen his game log over the last few games. He has had a very nice season, but I don't know if it's 25 points or more per game so far in SEC play. Averaging 19.5 per game, 4.5 rebounds on the season. He's having a pretty good year. They'll meet each other on Saturday. And those are the polls.
Excellent. That's the show. A lot of fun. Rhett Bryan's going to join us from Mobile. We'll do some Senior Bowl stuff starting tomorrow. Got a lot of things to get into with him. Blaine and Mickey going to keep you entertained. Coming up next, have a great rest of your afternoon. I will talk to you tonight at 8 p.m. on the Primetime Show.